Hi, I'm Dani Johnson, and I want to let you know up front that this video is not going to be a perfect video. As you can tell already, the sound is not up to par, but it is what it is. And I felt like today was a really good day for me to meet with you in, let's say, an upper room. This week, something really special is actually taking place, and it's something biblical and something that God had told all of us that He wanted us to do every single year. And I just really felt like I didn't want to go into an office and do a recording on this, but it was like, no, let's do this in an upper room. And you're going to find out here in just a few minutes why I chose to do today's video in an upper room where it's super echoey. And to be honest with you, the upper room where it happened 2,000 years ago. I don't know if you've ever heard about the upper room where Yeshua had his, which is Jesus, had his Passover right before he died. And Passover, I don't know if you saw those videos, especially the ones that we did from our house and the ones that we did actually from Israel that we recorded right from an upper room in Israel. The homes there are echoey as well. It's all hard, it's all, hard floors, it's all, concrete walls or stone walls, and then stone outside on the houses. And so just so happens it's exactly how it is at our house, where it's hard floors and, some pillars and stone walls and things like that. And so our home is super echoey. And today I wanted to do this particular video, this particular spiritual equipping that we're going to be doing today, right from our upper room. And as you can see in the background, to be honest with you, there's places of Israel that look just like what is behind us right now. Like this whole background, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's actually got a misty, it's kind of really humid outside today. But we've got this kind of mist that is happening out there. We're expected to get thunderstorms sometime today. Hopefully it's not going to happen during the video. Excuse me. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get right into it because I'm super excited about what I'm going to share with you, as this book right here that I'm holding in my hand is by far my most favorite book. It is the book that I've spent more time reading than any other book. I'm going through it about 16 times now. I'll be starting on my 17th time, here really shortly. But this book has changed my life. This book has fed me every single morning. This book has shown me how to parent my children. It's shown me how, there are 5 of them and now 8 grandchildren. The book has showed me how to overcome really bad financial choices and how to put our finances in order. The book has shown me how to heal places of our marriage, meaning my part of the marriage and my part of our relationship, me as a wife. This book has shown me how to build businesses. The book has shown me how to manage people and projects. I mean, there's everything in here, like wars and how to move through wars, how to heal, also how to eat. That's also in this particular book, which is a really, really powerful book. So anyway, we're going to do this spiritual equipping for you today. And again, this is where I'm reading from. It's called The Scriptures. It's actually Institute of Scripture Research. It's my favorite version of the best success book ever written, which is the Bible, if you haven't figured that out yet. And the reason why is because it goes straight from Hebrew to English in the First Testament. And that's why it's one of my favorites, is that we just kind of skip the Greek translation. We just go straight Hebrew to English. And I've actually compared it to my friends' Bibles in Israel that they translated straight from Hebrew to English. And so we've got the closest translation as possible versus something getting lost in another language and then back to English. So the other thing is that every Hebrew name is kept intact, including God's name. Somewhere along the way, whether it was, purpose for a pagan reason or if it was purpose because of so much adoration for God, they took the name of God out of the Bible, which was really hilarious to me because the Bible says do not do that. In fact, it's the 10 Commandments that says do not bring my name to nothing. And yet we did that in our Bible. So in your Bible, you're going to see where it says, wherever it says God or Lord, it's actually saying Yahweh or Elohim, Elohim being Hebrew for God. So we're going to first start right here. Now, why are we talking about this? Well, almost 50 days ago, there was the Passover celebration. And the Passover celebration, like the one that we do at our house and in millions of homes all over the world, especially Jewish homes, and then some Christian homes, which I'm so proud of all of those who say they were believers in Yeshua, Jesus the Messiah, that they're actually doing what Yeshua did, and they're keeping the same exact traditions, the traditions of God, the traditions of our Father versus the traditions of man. And so Passover is a beautiful celebration, and it's a multifaceted and many, many hours, and it's a fun, fun night. And it's a night remembering how God brought us out of captivity, brought us out of our Egypt, brought us out of Mitzrayim, which is bondage, bringing us out of a place of bondage, bringing us out from under a Pharaoh, a wicked king who was controlling, mean, manipulating, uncaring, was not a good shepherd of people, but he abused the people. And the children of Israel for over 200 years were being enslaved by various different pharaohs. And so here on Passover, Pesach, it means to pass over the houses, where that 10th plague came in, and the 10th plague that actually slew all of the children, the firstborn sons of every home that did not have the blood of the perfect lamb over their doorposts. And so the celebration of Pesach is actually the beginning of Shavuot, which is happening right this week. And I want you to go and ask Rabbi Google. Okay, that's just affectionately what I call Google. Everybody goes to Google for information, right? So if you go to Rabbi Google, which is just, Google, and you type in, when is Shavuot? This is something you should know about. It's in the Hebrew calendar. It's a calendar that the Hebrews have been keeping since the very beginning of time, since this time. And so right here in this book, it says that we're supposed to count the Omer. And for weeks, it's the Feast of Weeks, that for 7 weeks, and then there is the ingathering festival. It's the festival of Shavuot. Shavuot is how you spell it, I believe. I hope so. Anyway, I might have totally screwed that up. But I think when you start typing it, it's going to come up. One of my favorite resources is Chabad.org, spelled Chabad. Chabad.org. It is a resource I've used for years. Another one is HebrewForChristians.com. I think it's a .com. I'm not totally sure, but anyway. All right, so I'm going to start right in here. We're going to start in Exodus chapter 34, and we're going to start at verse 22. 22 through 26. So to kind of give you some clarity, because right now this is where we're at. We're in that, right? That we're coming up on the 50 days, which, by the way, the Jews then affectionately called Pentecost, because the pentagram, the 50th, right? Because that actually represents the 50th. And so anyway, so isn't that funny? It was the Jews that actually named Pentecost. So there's some powerful things that happened throughout history 50 days after Pesach, 50 days after Passover, including in modern history. Very significant biblical things, biblical prophecy coming to pass on this particular day. So let's go ahead and first start here in the scripture, and then I'll go into what has happened in the modern time. And then, of course, in 2,000 years ago, what is significant and why I'm in an upper room, why I'm overlooking this beautiful view in this super echoey room that sounds terrible for video, but who cares, right? Okay, so we're going to start at Exodus 34, verse 22. And it says this. It says, and perform the festival of Shavuot for yourself of the first fruits of wheat harvest, and the festival of ingathering at the turn of the year. 3 times in the year, all your men are to appear before the Master Yahweh, the Elohim of Yitzrael. For I dispossess nations before you, and shall enlarge your borders, and let no one covet your land when you go up to appear before Yahweh your Elohim 3 times in the year. Do not slay the blood of my slaughtering with leaven, and do not let the slaughtering of the festival of the Pesach remain until morning. Bring the first of the fruits of your land to the house of Yahweh your Elohim. This is so beautiful. All right, so that's the first place that we see. That's actually not the first place. The first place is in Exodus 23, I believe. But that's the second place. So then we go over, so look what it says, all right? So here he's saying 3 times a year you are to come and you are to celebrate. Now, how do we celebrate? Now, it says it right here. This is pretty cool. Deuteronomy 16:10. Turn to Deuteronomy 16:10. So here we just saw, as you're turning to Deuteronomy 16:10, Here we see that he says you are to perform this festival. Perform this festival. It's the first fruits of the wheat, the first fruits of the wheat harvest. It's the ingathering, and 3 times a year is supposed to come. So the first time a year that the men are supposed to go to the temple was for Passover. The second time, it doesn't mean that their wives and children didn't go along with them. They did. The second time is Shavuot. 50 days after Pesach, we're supposed to then come back and present our wheat, the first fruits of our wheat harvest before him, and it's supposed to be a celebration. And the third time is in the fall, and that is during Sukkot. That's a whole nother ingathering festival. These 3 times a year that we're supposed to come back and present ourselves to him and have a big party. Okay, and I'm talking like, hello, millions of people gathering, having a big party. Could you imagine the barbecue? Okay, so now we're at Deuteronomy 16:10. So it says, and you shall perform the festival of Shavuot to Yahweh your Elohim. What's a festival? It's fun. Man, I know very few people that are religious that have fun outside of course, my Jewish friends who really know how to party and celebrate the Bible. And it really breaks my heart on how we do not keep our Father in heaven, the creator of the heavens and the earth. We don't keep his traditions. We rather keep our US traditions or our English traditions or our Australian traditions. Like we have no problem keeping the traditions of our fathers here on earth, but here our Father who birthed us on this earth, who created the heavens and the earth for us, and for him, we don't keep his traditions. He has traditions. He has things that he wants us to celebrate. And this is one of those things. And it's coming up here in just a few days. So get yourself ready to party. So it says this, and you shall perform the festival of Shavuot to Yahweh your Elohim according to the voluntary offering from your hand, which you give as Yahweh your Elohim blesses you. And you shall rejoice before Yahweh your Elohim, you and your son and your daughter and your male servant and your female servant and the Levite who is within your gates and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are in your midst at the place where Yahweh your Elohim chooses to make his name dwell. And you shall remember that you were a slave in Mitzrayim, and you shall guard and do these laws. Perform the festival of Sukkot for 7 days after the ingathering from your threshing floor and from your wine press. And that's the third one that's in September, which you'll see in a different place. And you shall rejoice in your festival, and you and your son and your daughter and your male servant, your female servant, and the Levite and the stranger and the fatherless and the widow who are within your gates. For 7 days you shall celebrate to Yahweh your Elohim in the place which he chooses, because Yahweh your Elohim does bless you in all your increase and in all the work of your hands, and you shall be only rejoicing. 3 times a year, all your males appear before Yahweh your Elohim in the place that he chooses at the festival of Mitzvot, which is Pesach, and the festival of Mitzvah is the festival of unleavened bread, which is kicked off by Passover, and the festival of Shavuot, which is now happening this week, and the festival of Sukkot. And none should appear before Yahweh empty-handed, but each one with the gift of his hand, according to the blessing of Yahweh your Elohim, which he has given you. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, so watch. What does that mean? First of all, this is what I find to be so beautiful. There's a couple things I find to be so beautiful. So one that I think is so beautiful is that he has us come together 3 times a year to celebrate. This particular celebration, okay, so 50 days ago it was a celebration that he delivered us out of our bondage. He took down the one who was abusing us. He took down the one who was controlling and manipulating us. He took down the one and the one and his entire army who was mistreating us. He cared about us. He heard us, and he delivered us out of our bondage. Have you ever thought and sat to think about the bondage that he's delivered you out of? See, once a year, he wants us thinking about that, what he's delivered us from, how he has sanctified us, how he has redeemed us, and how he reconciled us to him and gave us a promise of our own land, gave us a promised land, okay? So you can think in terms of how does that apply to your life? He's delivered you from all kinds of things, just like he's delivered me from all kinds of things. Oh my gosh, I was suicidally depressed for years. I was in so much bondage and hatred of myself and hatred of other people. He completely delivered me from that. And we'd be here all day day if I told you of all the things that he actually delivered me from. So we're not going to go there. But just do that, okay? And that's what's supposed to happen just about 50 days ago during Pesach. But this particular holiday that we're facing here this week, Shavuot, this particular holiday is about what? He has provided for us in our land, right? He has provided for us. So we're supposed to bring a first fruits offering to him, right? And that is to say what? Come on, think about it. Can we grow food without him? Nope. And that's what this is about, is realizing our absolute dependence upon him. I know this, that in my early years, especially when I went from homeless to millions and now multi-millions of dollars, and now give away my salary, and 10% of the profits come straight off the top of our very profitable business, which turns out to be about 30% of our net profits, straight off the top every single month goes straight to feeding the widow and the orphan, taking care of the poor, building homes for the extreme poor, and freeing kids from the sex trade. So I'm here as a volunteer today, and I volunteer as we teach training seminars all over the world. But the point is that he not only delivered me from Egypt, he has also prospered me. And I remember in the very beginning, in my early days, man, for some reason, I thought it was all me, man. I did it, and I did it on my own. That is such a bunch of nonsense. Guess when I figured out that I didn't do it on my own? When I got embezzled. When I got embezzled, I was like, and then you're like, God, please help me, and where my house, I'm going to lose my house. My bank accounts were being levied by the IRS because of some tax issues that came up because I was completely embezzled. I mean, it was a terrible time. But it was then when I realized the absolute dependence that I had on my God, because he delivered me out of that situation also. He delivered us out of our debt by teaching us through his word, by the way, how to become financially responsible. And so one of the ways to become financially responsible and not living in greed, which we lived in greed for so many years. We were controlled by greed. We were in bondage to greed, and we didn't even realize it. Man, I was a massive shopaholic. I had no self-control. I was burying my emotions and buying things. And so, but he's delivered me from that. He rescued me from that Pharaoh, if you will, and out of my bondage, out of my Mitzrayim, out of my land of bondage that I had been living in, that I didn't even know I was living in until you wake up one day and go, I am so being controlled by this. So anyway, the bottom line here is that he is faithful, and we need once a year minimum to come together and have a festival in our land of promise, which you are living in right this minute. You are so blessed. I am so blessed, right? If we are living in any part of the western part of the world, like we're ridiculously over the top blessed. We have food on the table. We don't even have to think about it, right? We've got roofs over our head, and many of our houses have air conditioning. We've got heating at the push of a button, cooling at a push of a button. We have windows, we have neighbors. Most of us are living in very protected places and safe places. Many of us have transportation. Many of us even get to fly around the country, right? Just like over 1,000 people will be flying to Chicago here in just a couple of weeks for First Steps to Success. And so the bottom line is we are ridiculously blessed with so many ridiculous luxuries, and yet we have a tendency of forgetting about who is the one who has provided those blessings. Yes, you've worked hard, but he has blessed the work of your hands. Yes, a farmer works hard to plant seed and reap the harvest of the wheat harvest. He does his part, but without God, that seed does not grow. The man cannot make it grow. The man cannot water the earth. Do you understand? Man can't make the rains fall from the sky. That's the bottom line. And so this is what's so important about this particular holiday, is that we've got to come to that place of going, wow, Father, look what you have provided for us. So it's a time and a day and a holiday, and it's a time of rest, by the way, too. On Shavuot, we're supposed to have that day of rest, and it's about gleaming, and it's a party. Do you understand? So it's not working that day, but it's having a party. And yes, we're going to be preparing food and celebrating how he has provided for us, and that's what that's about. The other thing that came on this day, Shavuot, was, and the tradition is that God gave us the 10 commandments on that day. And so that day might be a great day for you and the family to gather and, again, have a celebration, have a party. Okay, imagine Thanksgiving, right? In the springtime, or at the end of spring, coming on the first days of summertime. So having that time where you are enjoying yourselves, celebrating with lots of food. It's the food, it's celebrating and eating the fruit of the harvest, right? So whatever fruits and vegetables are harvesting during this time, whatever of the grains they're harvesting of this time, that we make a big celebration of it, and also go back and look at those 10 commandments, right? Think about it. Do you think you could benefit once a year from reading the 10 commandments? I think so. By the way, it's in Exodus chapter 20. So go through those, especially, all of them. I think it's really important to read all of them. So before I go over there to Exodus chapter 20, we're going to fast forward to about 1,500 years after this particular command was given for Shavuot. And where are we? We're in the upper room. We're in that place where after Yeshua had ascended, right? So he was tried the night of Pesach, and he was tried perhaps for several days after that. Then he was hung on a cross. Then he was laid in a tomb. And 3 days later, he was risen from the dead. And for 40 days, he was here among us. He was here, in Jerusalem and in Galilee with his taught ones, his disciples, and proving what had happened and proving the miracle that he was the Messiah that was prophesied all the way back to Egypt. He was prophesied in that time, and that he was the Passover lamb. But during this time, as he was ascending, he told his disciples to go to Jerusalem, to stay in Yerushalayim, to stay here, he said, stay here in Yerushalayim. And here was the day of Shavuot. He says, because I am sending a gift to you. And you'll never guess the day that this happened. It happened on Shavuot. That in the upper room, which again, I am in an upper room right now with beautiful views, very similar to the views that are in Jerusalem, more on Mount Carmel, more in Galilee. And that dirt patch over there, very similar. I mean, where we live here in the hill country of Texas is almost identical, same terrain and same kind of weather patterns that are happening in Israel and Jerusalem. Specifically. So anyway, so he tells them to stay in Yerushalayim. And why? Why was Yeshua in Yerushalayim when he was living in Galilee? Why did he come to the temple? Because he kept his father's traditions. Why was he telling his disciples, stay in Yerushalayim? Because here it was, Shavuot was coming, and we were always supposed to come to the temple during that time. And so in the upper room, right, the same area where Yeshua had his last Passover, is the very same place that all in one day, the Spirit of the living God, Ruach HaKodesh, okay, which is the Holy Spirit, which means wind. Spirit means literally, the little translation is wind, where Ruach HaKodesh is holy, which is set apart. The set apart Spirit, the set apart wind came rushing through that upper room area right there in Yerushalayim, where 3,000 were gathered. I'm telling you, what an amazing thing. And 3,000 received him. Sorry, not 3,000 were gathered that day. It was 120 or something like that were gathered. And they were celebrating Shavuot. It was a time of celebration. And bam, the Spirit of the living God hit them and came on them, and they all began to speak in different tongues, and they began to prophesy, and people thought they were drunk. Well, guess what? Wine is used for Shavuot, but they said, no, it's 9:00 in the morning. We're not drunk yet. We're not drunk. We haven't had any wine yet. It's early. It's too early in the morning. We haven't even begun our celebration yet, but yet here the Spirit of the living God came on then. So this all happened on the same day, Shavuot. We received the Torah, the 10 Commandments. Okay, we were to come together and celebrate our harvest, celebrate what God has done when we were to bring him a first fruits harvest, and we're supposed to be a huge party. The next thing that happened in 1948, the next thing that happened 2,000 years later was, not 2,000, about 1,500 years later, was the filling of the Holy Spirit, Ruach HaKodesh, the filling, the speaking in tongues, the prophesying, the craziness that happened there. And then those guys went out and led 3,000 people to believe that the Messiah was Yeshua and that he was here, and that the Father fulfilled his promise of bringing the Mashiach. And then the next crazy, crucial thing that happened on Shavuot was the birth of Israel again as a nation in 1948, where all the Jews were coming together, declared themselves as a nation on Shavuot in 1948. And then the next day, and again, Shavuot is a 2-day celebration. On the very next day is when the United Nations acknowledged that Israel was a sovereign nation. So God still keeps his timeline. He so blesses us. I hope that today has blessed you. Please share this with people so they have time to be able to pull together a beautiful festival that we can all celebrate together, all connected throughout the entire world. God bless you. This is Dani Johnson from DaniJohnson.com. Please leave me some comments and let me know if today blessed you. And also, if you're going to go ahead and start keeping your Father's traditions instead of the traditions of man. It's time to party, friend. It's time to realize how much he has blessed us and to celebrate how he's brought us into a land of promise that we're living in right now, and to acknowledge that and bring him that offering. And by the way, if you don't have a place to bring an offering, King's Ransom is where Hans and I send our offering. We take care of the poor through kingsransom.org. Again, that's kingsransom.org. Let's free some kids from the sex trade. Let's build some homes for the extreme poor. Let's feed some orphans. Let's bring water to the waterless, and let's help that widow. Over at King's Ransom, 100% of what you give of that first fruits offering is going straight to the food that are feeding the people who have none, straight to bringing the water to those who have none. Do you understand? Not to some executive, not to somebody that's just blowing up their own pockets and living a lavish lifestyle. Nope. 100% of what you give is going to go straight to the work that God has called all of us to do. God bless you, and I hope you have a great day. Bye.